Okay, yes, I'm Galia Selaya. I'm very glad to be here. Happy to see faces from all times in Bolivia and also the US, TCD, and the University of Florida. It's really a pleasure to be back after 7 years. And today I'm coming back as a Fulbright Scholar. Fulbright Scholar is a program of the Education and Cultural Secretary of the government. And the Fulbright Amazonia is a new program, the Fulbright program as a whole, and is devoted to fund research in Amazonia to curb climate change, and at the same time to find innovative approaches to solve the problems of economic and livelihood and cultural issues in the region. So, as part of the program, the scholars, we spent months in U.S. universities, and the scholars from the U.S. spend time in the Amazonia. So it's an exchange program that leads us into this. So back at home, I am a member of the Forest Health Consortium. It's a group of researchers from Madre de Dios of Peru, Acre, Brazil, and Pando, Bolivia, in this case myself. That was formed like kind of spontaneously in a way, because we needed a framework to apply projects, especially under the International Cooperation Framework. So we are working together more or less since 2009. That was the time that I was a postdoc at the University of Florida in two projects that Dr. Stephen Persson was leading. And then at that time, within those projects, I was dealing with basically measuring carbon stocks to inform RED projects, to payments for environmental services. And so to cover the whole Madre de Dios Acrepando region, so we started to join forces with other universities to increase the number of plots. So that was the beginning of the Forest Consortium. And afterwards, we continue working together, and I'm going now to the 2019. As a Forest Health Consortium, we applied to Prodigy, Biotip. Prodigy is a project funded by the German Ministry of Education and Science. And it's a project about tipping points, soil governing tipping points in southwestern Amazonia. And at the same time, I was collaborating with MapFire, it's a multi-actor plan to cope with fire in the southwestern Amazonia. And then that was the framework to write a proposal for Fulbright. So in 2023, I decided to apply to call, and then since along the way, I noted that it was needed not only ecology, but also we needed to talk about governance. That is a big issue in the region. Then I decided to frame my proposal for Fulbright in the scenario of sustainability, engaging people to discuss governance, environmental governance, and to discuss what kind of economic opportunities are required to walk through the sustainability. And so, as a corollary of this road, let's say that almost 15 years, Next year, the idea is to have 3 outputs. The first one is about indicators of tipping points, climate, land use, economy in the political ecology context. And the second is participatory research of forest resilience and vulnerability to stressors. That comes from the work with permanent floods, and because we have the opportunity to see changes in time in forests, and forest structure and species composition, and see what is the dynamic that is driven by the climate change and the anthropogenic impact. But this time involving people to monitor forest changes with us. And finally, the third part is the scenarios of sustainability applying the theory of change. And this one is focusing on local stakeholders in the southwestern Amazonia, talking about indigenous group, forest dealers, private sector, NGOs, that through a workshop, we can come up with some kind of common agenda, as much as possible, of course. Okay, so that's the framework in which I work, combining these 3 experiences and the Fulbright scholarship. Okay, so next. I want to go to the first steps. So do you have a pointer also? Okay, I'll use this. Sorry.
Because this is not
okay, sorry. So today I'm going to present indicators of tipping points in the southwestern Amazonia through the lens of political ecology. And Amazon, one knows, for its importance to regulate climate, global climate. But deforestation and degradation rates are increasing in the region, and that those factors are driving Amazonia to a tipping point. So according to IPCC, tipping point is a critical threshold beyond which a system reorganizes. And the worst part is the story that is often abruptly and irreversible. And translating that to the potential Amazonia rainforest tipping point, we are talking about the conversion of the moist forest that is currently in Amazonia to a savanna. So the prognosis that scientists made about the tipping point in the Amazonia as a whole is that this will occur after exceeding around 20 or 25% of deforestation. So that prognosis was done observing the deforestation rates and degradation rates occurring in the south and southeast of Amazonia that are in some cases already beyond the 20%. But of course, this trend is also moving towards the north. And then the question is, what is the future of the southwestern Amazonia, located in the border of the Acre, Madre de Dios Pando in the 3 countries, close to the Andean foothills? This region conserves still 90% forest cover. And so, but there are many challenges that this region is facing. So the question is the southwestern Amazonia approaching the tipping point? Well, for centuries, the southwestern Amazonia retained high forest cover thanks to the presence of non-timber forest products and the market. We are talking about rubber in the 90s, and after that, after the rubber boom, the rubber business crash, in other words, Brazil not like replace that source of income for local people. And lately, acai is starting to develop as a source of income for local people. But the situation is changing rapidly because of internal and external factors. So, talking about the external factors, I would like to call your attention of what was going on between 2019 and 2023 this year, especially in Bolivia and Brazil, but mostly Bolivia. As you see in the image, almost all Bolivian Amazonia were on fire. So we are talking about a holocaust, basically a collapse. And news and academics, NGOs, and civil society were protesting about this. And then we have to ask ourselves why this happened. So in 2019, in Bolivia, 6 million hectares were lost because of fire. That's the size of Pando, right in the north of Bolivia. So the region that we are talking, that is part of the southwestern Amazonia. And this year, well, at that time, the fires concentrated in the southeast. Yes. But this year, we lost 3.5 million hectares, and this time the fire went over the north, as you see, and especially 2 protected areas and 2 indigenous lands. You see, Pando is a little bit safe, but this is because the river, the Madre de Dios river, served as a what do you say, as a barrier? Barrier, exactly, thanks. So, what are the drivers? Well, the drivers to such a holocaust and such wildfires are folk expansion, gold mining, land grabbing, and cattle ranching. So there are other factors behind these drivers that we can discuss later on the presentation. But definitely external factors are playing a role and are a threat in Amazonia. But we also have internal factors. You can see in in Acre, the number of hot pixels this year were well above the ones in Madre de Dios and Pando. So that's basically because of the expansion of cattle ranching. Then we can have like a domino effect, and so we are talking about a window of time of few years to avoid a tipping point in the region. So then it is like pertinent to check what factors influence more to cross on the tipping point thresholds in the southwestern Amazonia. Thinking the system, I like this graph because it makes a little bit clearer the idea of how was the situation in the southwestern Amazonia, starting from a kind of stable system because it was based in forests, maintaining forest cover. And then the drivers have a cumulative impact, but those are the climate change, and we have to see at land use, economy, and power structure in the southern region to see if the perfect storm, if these 3 factors will join to make the perfect storm, and to define more or less when how this line is moving. See it? So to do that, we have to take into account people, because those are people are the ones who use land. See it? So the challenge is how do we motivate people to avoid crossing the tipping point. Okay, so then the project objective is to engage local communities and other stakeholders to identify indicators of tipping points. And then together, we can define goals to reduce threats to forest and human health. Because this year, for instance, in the case of Bolivia, schools were closed because the air was so contaminated that that authorities had really closed the schools for public health. And that happened in the main cities of Bolivia. So imagine the impact on health that fire had this year. So then that's why I decided to include human health into the equation. And finally, the idea is to elaborate and evaluate scenarios to improve ecosystem and human health and sustainability, but in a participatory way. You've heard a lot about participatory actions and so, but I think, especially for me, it's more than ever needed. So what I'm going to talk now about the first part of the plan under Fulbright, which is the identification of tipping points and involving people on that. So what we started together with another Fulbright scholar, Sabina Ribeiro, that is also part of the Forest Health Consortium. She was at the University Federal de Acre. So we are doing a comparative study in the 3 protected areas, starting with the 3 protected areas in the region: Chico Mendes in Acre, Manuripi in Pando, and Tambopata Reserve in Peru. So in Chico Mendes and in Manuripi, you have people living inside the parks. But in Madre de Dios, people are not living unless living. Okay, that is not the case where you have the park and people living inside. Okay, so we wanted to see, to study what are the perceptions of people about tipping point in this kind of well-preserved ecosystems. And then what we are doing, these are preliminary results. It's like we did a pilot study up to now. So we expect to enlarge our number of samples and so forth. But for the time being, we started with defining some leading questions to talk to people. So the one is about how does climate influence changes in people's livelihood, because that will be like an indicator of how they feel their relationship of their livelihood with the environment, and how that should trigger them to act or to live in the worst of the case. See it? The other question is how people relate to environmental norms and land use. In protected areas, there are more stringent norms than outside. So it is interesting to see how people are dealing with the protected areas norms. And the third one is what are the sources of power conflicts. Everywhere you go, you have groups, you have different stakeholders that are like fighting or having conflicts on the land use to manage land and resources. The other question is what uncertainties and concerns people have about climate, about power relations, about any stressors, you know, so that can give us a hint about tipping points, the intricate relationship between economy, environment, and power. And finally, then having that, we can think about developing scenarios with local people, knowing well the situation and discussing the situation that they are passing through with them. So we basically use the participatory rural appraisal, you know, like I think it's like the mother of every kind of participatory survey or whatever type of research that we do with people. So I just put it like a general, and so and we did a survey of 60 people, and we asked them about their land tenure, their livelihood, what are the sources of income, and how they deal with the market, and how they participate in decision making at home, at the community level, at the department or regional level as well, to see how, if they have like a feeling that they are participating in something bigger, you know, in decisions that are made at a big scale. And also, we asked them about their ethnicity. We asked them what kind of group they identify. And we also are exploring the theory of plant behavior in order to go more deeper into people's psychology, to say a little bit like that, you know. So we wanted to identify what are the attitudes, the behavior towards environment, towards power, and towards economy. What kind of economy is appealing to them, and what are the future projections? What do they want to do there or outside the region? So those are like our indicators that will tell us if how we can relate these three factors: environment, economy, and governance, as I said, the perfect storm for a tipping point. So we surveyed up to now 60 community members. We expect to make to increase our number of interviews, and to do it also outside of the protected areas and in the indigenous lands. Okay, so here are some of the results. When we ask how they perceive the changes in climate and environment, I would say 100%, they said that they perceive higher temperatures, an increase in temperatures in the last years, and also the drought was more intense. Mm-hmm. So then they also perceive fire is becoming a problem in the region. As you've seen in the figure that I've shown before, fire, for instance, in the case of Bolivia, Pando is number 6 in fire. So it's not yet, it's a problem, but it's not like in the rest. So, but they perceive fire as a threat. And we also try to show the different types of land use and economic structures based on the interviews. And we find four kind of economic structures there. So starting from the first one that you see in the protected area, gold mining as the major economic driver, but that's in the Madre de Dios sub-watershed, we will say that, because when you go into the heart, more north, away from the river, people still think or report castaña is the main source of income. So in the same protected area, there's a coexistence of miners and Brazil nut gatherers. So that was a little bit shocking, you know, that because we went through the river and went to the communities, and suddenly I was in the middle of a community where everyone was a gold miner. So the tricky thing here is that gold miners are also cattle ranchers. So they want to increase, they have let's say as a source of development or linking the capitals or the sources, the income from gold mining to cattle ranching, and some of them to agroforestry. And so what they say is that they think that gold mining is transient, and that they would like to invest in something for the future, and that will be cattle or agroforestry, in this case, cacao. Okay, so the point is that they use fire, obviously, so then we are an ignition factor there. And the other, that happens in Peru and Bolivia. And in the case of the Chico Mendes reserve or extractive reserve, people are still identified as forest dealers, but everyone answered that has cattle as well. So then you see the system is based in non-timber forest products and cattle ranching with small farming. The ignition factors are there, cattle and small farming. And in places that in the buffer zone of the Reserva Tambopata, we found communities with small holdings, because all the rest have more than 500 hectares of land area. But in this case, in the buffer zone, we found communities that have small holdings below 30 hectares. So they are they produce cassava or plátano and sell to the main cities. And they have some agroforestry systems as well, and of course, cattle. Okay, so inside these communities, we found castaña or Brazil nut concessionaires. So those are the ones that in the reserve, in the Tambopata reserve, they are allowed to harvest castaña. Okay, but they are not allowed to live in the reserve, so they can use, they can extract the products. The one thing that you see in the middle, I put hunting, fishing, and logging. All of them, in every kind of system you see here, are loggers legal for home consumption, let's say. They fish and they hunt, and everyone said that the number of animals and fish are like decreasing. So there's a huge degradation. Right? It's not quantified yet, but I think the degradation is there. I mean, they feel it, they perceive it. Okay. So two other things. Let me see. Okay. So the investors for gold mining are Chinese capitals and also local and some other dubious international dealers. So we don't know exactly what is the link among the illegal activities and the money flowing from that activities to gold mining and therefore to land use change. Okay, so that's something that should be studied, and I don't want to hypothesize too much because there are red flags. Okay, so and the other interesting fact is that in the case of the Chico Mendes reserve, people reported they live on subsidies and retirement funds. So that is helping them a little bit in their livelihood. So they don't depend completely from Brazil nuts. Different to these people that they live in Pando, Bolivia, in the Manilipi Reserve. They live on Brazil nuts and they are trying to live on acai and other and agroforestry and other products. Okay, so basically that's what we could find up to now in the region, and then what we ask people is how they feel climate is influencing their livelihoods. So to link a little bit the economic structures with environmental changes. So they as you see in red, they think that the productivity of crops and non-timber products are getting worse. So that means that they are feeling climate change is like affecting the production. In Madre de Dios was the only place where we had some answers that said that productivity for crops it was better, and we think maybe that is because of technology improvements. Okay. So considering that the situation is getting worse in terms of productivity, we ask them what are the perceptions of their livelihoods for the future. And then what they said, especially in Pando and in Acre, that they perceive the situation will be worse in the future, assuming the climate change will be more extreme. But you see, Madre de Dios, the answers were not like that specific. You know, they said the same and worse. And better. Some of them better. So then we still have to find out why they think that situation can be better. Maybe they are not that linked with land, maybe because they have another source of income outside of the communities. Those are the things that we still have to study. So economically, let's say that there is like a, a gray area in terms of how close they think they are to a sinking point. And okay, so then we asked about power and environmental governance. That is the other part of the equation. So we asked them how they related with the norms, for instance, of the protected areas. And many people were dubious to answer. So we were not really like insisting yes or no answering, but our strategy was like the law of minimum, as I thought. You know, the law of minimum in agriculture studies is that you increase the fertilizer to a point that you can increase more, but the productivity won't increase. You know, so you have to go. So that means that with the minimum answer, we can think a little bit that what is what they are thinking about, you know, like, okay, so the issue is that, for instance, miners said they would like to increase the land use area. I mean, in other words, they would like to deforest more for cattle and agroforestry. So they even inside the protected areas. A little bit far away, they said, yeah, you know, yeah, it's okay, we're okay with the norms, but I think a little bit of flexibility would be good, you know? Like, and on the other hand, we also had people saying, you know, the norms should be enforced. People is arriving to the region. There are many migrants, so many people coming into the protected areas, and that is a problem. So then we came up with this, that is basically an observation and integration of what we heard from the local stakeholders, and yeah, definitely there's a political clientelism and fragile institutions. That's for sure, and that is triggering illegal land use and in the protected areas and in the forest reserves, and the leakages of illegal activities across borders. You see people from Peru going to Bolivia through the river, miners coming from Peru to Bolivia and other way around. And for instance, when law is enforced in Peru, the people will go to Bolivia because the law enforces this law, and we think the same will be happening in terms of coca and cocaine circuits, no? And the most striking thing is that there's a lot of migration to the protected areas or around the protected areas that is pressing in those areas, and of course, crime, corruption, and impunity are occurring. Okay, so we asked people their concerns and uncertainties about the future. We see these criminal networks and environments or the scenarios, and so the hypothesis is if people is suffering from the insecurity and safety, then maybe they would like to leave, no? But then we asked what was the safety perceptions in communities, and as you say, in green, the majority said that the regions are safe, you know. So and very unsafe, so very safe in some places. And for the very unsafe was very low percentage of answers, little unsafe and regular, you know. And I think Madre de Dios was the community in the buffer zone of the Tambopata Reserve. The answers were more like showing more concern about delinquency and crime. But very few of them will say that they will feel unsafe because of climate. Okay, so that's the perception is more towards personal security and so forth. And so we asked them then, are you willing to stay in the community if you feel that there are some elements of delinquency or unsafety or migration or whatever? And you see the majority will say yes, they would like to stay. And the answer were like, yes, we live here, we have a good quality of life. Yes, we need more schools, we need more health services. But in general, we still are better off here than in the city. Only in Madre de Dios, in the buffer zone, in the community of the buffer zone in Madre de Dios, we found said, no, I will leave. And I will leave because the situation, and some of them said that their productivity will be low in the future, so they won't have a source of income. So they prefer to leave. And some others said, I will leave because I will need to improve the school for my children. Yes. But in general, overall, the relationship of the willingness to stay or the perceptions of safety won't be that related to environment. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, so based on what we found so far, I think the southwestern Amazonia is moving towards a tipping point. So the combined effect of drought, higher temperature could break the resilience of the forest in the study region. But I think the main problem is that illegal and criminal activities are the major threat. In general, based, and that's a very, very qualitative assessment, based on what happened in the south of Bolivia especially, I think the time is short for a collapse in the southwestern Amazon. I think the system is moving to a tipping point before the ecosystem will collapse, just because of the anthropogenic impacts. And those anthropogenic impacts are mostly, could be mostly related with illegal activities. Because as I put the fires in the economic structure flip chart, you see that you need just one fire to start one fire. See? So then I think these people that are looking for investment assets, you know, like where I can put the money to maintain my lifestyle and so forth, are the ones who are going to push the system to a tipping point. Considering that this year, for instance, the temperature went up to 40 degrees. So the temperature is increasing, and the number of days without the rain are increasing, and the precipitation is decreasing, but also concentrated in few months. So we have also flooding, especially in the watershed, and then the rest of the year is getting dry. Okay, so so now the question is if the forest will be able to resist all those changes. And so what we are doing, and this is the second and the third part of the project, we are monitoring forests through permanent plots. And up to now, what I noticed after 10 years of measurements is that the range in, for instance, in biomass is increasing to the lower and to the highest level, but still I couldn't see like a drop, let's say. But we have to be careful with those preliminary results because the number of plots are still low. I'm waiting for other plots to compare and to increase the number of samples to see if we have a trend, a decreasing trend. We are also making monitoring more than 130 Brazilian nut trees to check if the productivity of Brazilian nuts are decreasing. So since the Brazilian nuts are the source of income, then that could give us a signal of a tipping point response. And we are doing this with people in farmers' fields. So we are doing participatory. Okay, so the second part is about scenarios. So this is just a glimpse of what we think we are going to work with further with local stakeholders. And then you see, this is kind of the south of Amazonia and the north of Amazonia in this picture. So in any case, let's say that we have the sustainable scenario and the business as usual scenario. For the first case, the cautionary measurements, because the fast of the environmental changes are so high that sometimes science is like sometimes below what is going on, especially in regions that have less developed scientific sources. So precautionary measures are very important there. So to take, so to even though we don't have like a scientific information or data, we have to be careful. That's the message, and we have to be very strong. We have to focus strongly on prevention. And if in the business as usual situation, that means that if the impacts will are increasing, and well, we have to strong focus on restoration. See? So I think that is very logical, nothing new. But the trick is that in any situation, in any scenario, we need governance and law reforms and economic opportunities outreaching local people. So for the third part of the program, using the theory of change approach, what we are doing is discussing with local people the sustainable scenario, designing with them sustainable scenario with the goal of with objectives, let's say. So improving governance and searching for what kind of economic models or what kind of economic economic structure will lead to sustainability at the forest at this last forest frontier. So so the idea is to discuss current laws, and I think the idea is to identify with them how law can be enforced and how norms can be reformed, but into the scientific with a scientific base, and also think about payments for environmental services, and thinking about red projects and this type of project that are implemented since long. Like I think 2009, 10 was the boom of the red project, but why there are not success stories? You know, what is going on? What happens? What is failing in those systems? So these kind of discussions we are promoting with local people, so we can have like a transparent scenario and see where we go from there. Obviously, that requires the social civility involved and empowered, and it is with dialogue among stakeholders, because everyone have their own interests. See? So conciliating those interests requires lots of discussion, dialogues, and especially having a common goal. And so our tools are generating knowledge with local peoples through information from permanent plots, from observation, from citizen science, and those kind of methodologies that can help us to make a collaborative learning with local people. You know, because I think this whole scenario, the scenario projection and studies requires now implementing transdisciplinary. So basically, is that. So there are several tools, technological tools such as drones, remote sensing, etc. But those tools should be useful for people, and also kind of why not? Local people have to learn about using those tools to monitor themselves. Okay. So in conclusion, an increase in drought, wildfires, and crime moves the southwestern Amazonia to a tipping point risk. And we found from our interviews, or from our survey, that stakeholders can identify stressors, but stakeholders' desire and positive actions may be dominated by political and criminal stakeholders. And also based on what happened, especially in Bolivia in the last 3 years, drought, high temperatures, wildfires, even flooding. The southwestern Amazonia is at high risk of disasters, a disaster in the short term. So let's say that in a range of 3 to 5 years, the collapse can reach. So we need to find mechanisms to value forest products, ecosystem services, and these mechanisms should take into account expectations and of local people. And finally, I think it will be very difficult to change the status quo right now in the Amazonia if civil society don't react. And I think this is like the first time that I've seen this year in Bolivia this kind of protest in all over the country, and with basically says no gold, no coca, don't touch the forest. So the elephant in the room has been identified by civil society, and I think this is the moment to strengthen that reaction. And just to say what they will say before was no soybean, no soybean, no cattle, don't touch the forest. But this time they said no gold, no coca, don't touch. You see? So then I'm definitely happy that the elephant in the room has been identified, and I hope that will inspire us to continue working in the region and try to help the last forest year in southwestern Amazonia. Thank you very much on behalf of the team, which is a big team of local people, researchers, international, and field technicians, that without them, I wouldn't do what I'm doing in the region. Thank you very much. And